In this lesson, we will add controls for the creature's jaw and mandibles. Let's go ahead and create another box and we'll extract a shape from it. So there's our cool little box. From here, we'll go ahead and make sure we convert it to an editable poly. And now in our edge subobject level, let's say we grab the edges on our right. So grab all four. Do the same thing on the left side. And the two underneath. What we're doing is creating a cage that will wrap around the creature's jaw. So this looks good. Let's go ahead and convert this to a shape. Make sure it's linear. We'll have it renamed to anim_jaw01, which is okay, and there it is. Let's go ahead and get rid of this cube now. And it's time to align this object to our jaw. So we'll head over to Tools, Manage Layers. There it is. And we'll go ahead and hide our model. From there, let's go ahead and quick align over to our jawbone. Alright, great. Now, it's a good idea to just go ahead and link this object just to take care of that part of the process. Since we know it's going to be linked to our head control, we'll just make sure it's added there. And then we can go ahead and work on reshaping this so it wraps around the jaw so it's easy to select. So let's say we do that now. We'll come out of our link tool. That way we can easily grab our points. If you're ever having trouble selecting your points, even after you've entered into your vertex of object level, again, you just want to check and make sure that you're not under your link tool. If so, you might have a bit of trouble when it comes to selecting your points. But in this case, we're just fine now. Alright, so with all of these selected, we'll go ahead and hide our model. And let's go ahead and just drag this shape down. And we'll have it start wrapping around the jaw. So we'll go ahead and grab these points closer to the lower lip, these 2 points here. Let's go ahead and grab our scale tool. Make sure we're scaling from the center of our selection so we can taper this control in. Just bring this in a bit. Great. We're going to grab the points at the back and let's start to pull these back a bit more. Alright. Now, if I were to hide the model, these 2 points here at the top and at the front, let's say we go ahead and select those and we'll start to drag those down using the Z and Y plane. Cool. I'd almost like to scale these in a bit more. So we'll just go ahead and bring those in. We have to think about the mandible controls we'll add. We just want to make sure we have enough space. Alright, now I'll go ahead and hide the model and we'll go ahead and tweak these back points. Let's go ahead and select those. And we'll go ahead and just scale these out. Alright, so from here, we can go ahead and take a look at our control. That looks pretty cool. Let's make sure we recolor it. So we use that same shade of yellow. We'll also go ahead and make sure to freeze its transforms now. We've already linked the object, so we can safely do that. There we go. Alright, so we'll hide our creature. Let's go ahead and grab one of our helpers. We'll go ahead and clone the object. We'll rename it PTDRV jaw01. And now we'll use Alt-A to align this over to our jawbone. Alright, great. Now, at this point, we can make sure that we link to our jaw control. And then we'll go ahead and apply an orientation constraint. Let's go ahead and select that and connect it to our helper. We'll now go ahead and test things out by grabbing the control. There we go. We bring our creature back and start to move the control. Take a look, he's talking now. Roar. Great. Alright, so once that's set up, we're ready to now go ahead and lock down movement and scale. Let's also make sure it gets added to our controls layer. Alright, sweet. So it's time to rig the mandibles now. Let's go ahead and add controls. Now we're going to do something slightly different. Let's go ahead and take a look at our challenge. We'll go ahead and hide our creature. So with the other controls, we've kept the orientation straight, but the mandibles are a bit different because they kind of angle in. So we want to be able to have animators animate along the same angle so that if they need to animate a bend, it's as easy as doing this, instead of working with a control that points straight, whose orientation would be a bit off, and then when we go to add some rotation, we'd end up with something that is a bit obscure. And the problem with that is, if we were to, let's say, bake this down and we needed to tweak the animation after it has been baked, well, now we'd be dealing with multiple axes instead of just one bend axis. All right, so to fix this, all we need to do is make sure that our controls match to the same orientation as our bone objects. All right, so let's go ahead and set this up. What we'll do is create another box. So we'll go ahead and create this object. Now make it a cube type. That way it's even on all sides. From here, we'll go ahead and convert this to an editable poly. We'll now go ahead and make sure to grab all of our edges and create a shape. Alright, sweet. So let's go ahead and name this Anim L mandible. And then since this is for the first part of the mandible, we'll go ahead and add the suffix _A01. Alright, that looks good. And let's go ahead and now choose OK. We'll get rid of the cube. Let's go ahead and take this object. We'll want to make sure its pivot is centered. So we'll go to our hierarchy panel, pivot, affect pivot only, center to object. And now let's go ahead and Alt-A align to mandible A on the left side of our creature. That's position, orientation, great. So since we've matched to position and orientation, take a look. When we grab our rotate gizmo, you can see the rotation is ideal. Alright, let's go ahead and clone this object. It's going to be mandible B01. Choose OK. And we'll Alt-A align to the second mandible bone. There we have it. We have our controls for the left side. Let's say we go ahead and select them both and add them to our controls layer. We could also go ahead and recolor them. And now, let's go ahead and basically mirror these across. Now we're working with a cube type shape simply because when we go to mirror this, we don't have to worry about changing the shape at all because it's all the same size. So watch, when we go ahead and, let's say, make a copy of this object, that's going to be Anim R mandible A01. We can essentially just go ahead and now use Alt-A to align to the next bone object. And again, the shape is still the same. All right, sweet. If you wanted to tweak it afterwards, you most certainly can. You can maybe pull your points down so it matches the length of the bone object, but that's not necessary at all. As long as these are easy to select, that's what we need to be concerned with. So this looks super cool. Let's go ahead and hide our model. Let's now go ahead and duplicate this. So we'll go ahead and press Ctrl-V, and we'll clone this as a copy. And that's going to be mandible B01. From here, we'll go ahead and use Alt-A to align to mandible B. Alright, sweet. Now let's go ahead and select both objects, and we'll recolor them to that same shade of green we've been using. Alright, this looks good. It's all coming together very well. Let's now go ahead and work on a bit of linking work. We'll go ahead and take our two mandible objects at the top, and we know that they should be controlled by our head control. Okay, so once we have done that, we can go in and freeze transforms on these objects. Let's now go ahead and take our lower controls. We need to do this one at a time and link to mandible A. Great. Now with both selected, we'll go ahead and Alt-right click and freeze our transforms. Alright, sweet. So when we grab mandible A, so we start to rotate that around, mandible B will follow. When we rotate mandible B, you can see the orientation is matched to the bone object. That's exactly what we want. So now we don't even need to work with helpers. All we need to do is orientation constrain the bone object to its control. So we'll go to Animation, Constraints, grab our Orientation Constraint, connect to the control object, and take a look. Nothing is shifted out of place. Everything is ideal. Let's go ahead and right-click, transform to 0. So that's what we need to do here. We'll just go to our bone objects and apply constraints. All right, sweet. So now when we take our control, as we start to move that, we can now go ahead and right-click and use transform to 0 to bring it back after we've tested the control out. So we'll go ahead and take care of the right side. I'll go ahead and pause the video. All right, take a look. Our constraints have been applied, so everything's moving just fine. Now the next thing I'd like to talk to you about is your axis order. Watch this. If we were to remain in gimbal mode with our rotate gizmo here, if we were to go ahead and select mandible A, watch as we start to twist this, you can see now the bend axis, which is the Z, it's not following our control. It's just staying behind. That's because our axis order is being evaluated in the wrong order. So you want to go in and change your axis order just because it makes it easier to animate rotation and to read rotation in your curve editor. So to fix this, we can make sure to go to the motion panel, and underneath rotation, let's go ahead and scroll down to the very bottom until we find our Euler parameters. So right now we are working with X, Y, Z, and what this means is that X is going to be controlled by the Y and Z, and Y is going to be controlled by Z, and Y will control X. So that's what that means. So if we wanted to fix this, we basically need to make sure that when we move in the X-axis, it controls the Z-axis. And the Z-axis should probably be the first axis in our list, so that no matter how we move this, we always have a decent bend. So let's go ahead and work with Z, Y, X. So we'll go ahead and switch this to Z, Y, X. And now watch this. When we go ahead and rotate, now you can see that our bend axis is ideal. How cool is that? So animators will truly appreciate that, because if we left it where it was before, as we start to twist, we'd have to clean up more than just one F-curve to fix our bend. All right, but now it's a lot cleaner. So we'll do that for the other controls. Keep in mind that when you freeze your transforms, you'll have to redo this step. So if you manage to go ahead and freeze an object after you have tweaked the axis order, you'll want to make sure that you go back and check your axis order. All right, so I'll go ahead and choose ZYX for the last two. And all we need to do at this point is just go ahead and lock these objects down, which we know how to do already. Hierarchy panel, link info, and we'll lock down movement and scale. All right, so I'll go ahead and leave the others up to you. And guess what? We only have the small arms to take care of. I'll go ahead and show you how we'll take care of those. It's going to be a really fun little step. And then we can basically just check our rig, make sure everything is working just fine before we move on to animation.